Recording here. Recording here. Recording here. And there. You guys put together this very fancy, artsy documentary interview setup to tell you my dream, which is to create a Netflix documentary series. I'd be lying if I said I knew the blueprint to get there, but that's the fun part. I have always tried to keep my focus on the process, knowing in the back of my head with some blind faith that this will all lead to something greater than I can imagine. This spring, we're producing our first official season of Spotlight in New York City. The series dives into people's creative spaces, sharing stories and experiences that aim to help you create more. Not the hopecore hyper edits that make you feel inspired with no direction.
You haven't thought about it.
Those are pretty fire though. These are testimonial stories of creatives in the mix. Not a how I made it story, but more how I'm making it. Everyone has such a unique creative path to this point. And our goal with this series is to give you a better understanding of what it takes to get there. The risks, undying dedication to your craft, and ultimately, the biggest lessons learned through the whole process. And the whole point of this video is to show you how we're doing it. I know, a little play on words, we're telling stories about how people are making it, and I thought that it could be interesting to also show you how we are making this documentary series basically with no budget, no brand partnerships. This is just our process that we're building in-house at Create More Studios, me, Liam, Christian. In this video, I want to run you through our pre-production process, our actual production and filming of these episodes, and sort of touch on the editing process, going through the interviews, and how we plan to roll this whole thing out. So in terms of Spotlight, the series that we've done over the last 2 years, we've just done it very sporadically. And there was never anything that was cohesive about it, other than the fact that we would release an episode once every 6 months. And for this winter/spring, we wanted to create our first season. So we essentially are going to stack these episodes, and then come June, we'll be able to release them week by week by week. We want to cover most genres of the art space, creative space, whatever you want to call it. And I think for this first season, we're getting a good variety of different creatives. We have fashion creative, sort of a mix between like fashion and media, content creation. Then we also have a DJ collective that also bleeds into like the nightlife scene here in New York, and also producing their own original music. And then we have a mixed media artist and founder of a clothing brand. I say all this because, finding the guests and finding the talent that we want to interview is a huge part of our process. And we actually, before we started any of this, I met with Christian and Liam in December, and we decided to get serious about it and try to really approach this as if it was a series or a TV show, and start really heavy on finding the talent that made the most sense. Something that we had always struggled with in the past was having one-liners or a one sheet ready of who we are, what we stand for, and what we're trying to do. And so we actually made our own brand identity deck for Create More that dives into Spotlight, and now we have it in our back pocket to send to potential guests, potential clients. This is a really good exercise to just dive deep into your mission statement, who you are, what you want to do, what you stand for, what does the content look like, and so that when you can package it up and send it to people in a really simplified format, it gives you a better chance of them being invested and them wanting to work right away. Once we had reached out to the guests and got the green light from everyone, what we like to do prior to even touching a camera or shooting or just documenting anything is just meet with the people. For me personally, above using a camera and making videos and spending hours editing, I want to really know the people. And for me, that's off camera. And I think for Liam and Christian, they could say the same thing. And I think that that's been the beauty behind this series, is truly getting to know the people, making them feel comfortable. If we're going to tell your story, that's a big deal. It can be intimidating, to be frank. And we try to break the ice a little bit before, just to build that relationship. The biggest step of pre-production for these episodes specifically is all the research. If you look at it from the grand scheme of things, this is a form of journalism, and I take that super seriously, and I know Liam and Christian do as well, and that's finding articles, that's watching all the YouTube videos, or whatever talent's medium is, doing a real deep dive and making sure that you're not asking the same questions that other interviewers are. Time is super precious, especially for creatives, and the last thing I want is to show up to an interview and we're just rattling off random things that don't make sense for Create More, don't make sense for their brand, and it all starts with research. When you show up to an interview really, really prepared and have studied something, it's really special how that can affect their answers and how that can affect their willingness to be vulnerable on camera. And that's something that we've learned over the last 2 or 3 years doing that, how important that is. When we meet with the guest, we try and pick 2 or 3 different filming locations that are specific to that person. Level 3, the DJ collective that we're working with, we wanted to interview them where they all met, where they went to school. It made sense to interview them on the Upper West Side. The whole point of this series is to dive into people's creative spaces. And so while that might not be their studio that they worked at, if we're on 121st Street and that's where they were hanging out 4 years ago when they all met, that's super relevant to the story. And we want to interview you where you're most comfortable and where you can get a feeling of whether it's nostalgia or inspiration, and implementing that in the series has been really rewarding and really fun. When we're doing the research and we're meeting with these guests, we're trying to figure out what makes sense in terms of a current event for them. Because we're going to interview them and ask them questions. We're also going to follow along for a specific thing, whether that's a video shoot that's big for them, or the show that they're throwing, or a painting that they're working on. So that yes, we are getting gems from them that have a lot of value in their interviews, but we're also showing you what their day-to-day looks like and trying to give you the best raw look into their life from a third-person perspective. This is gonna be in the title of like, we're making this with no budget or $0. And there's gonna be some people that are like, what about the cameras? And you got all the mics and stuff like that? Yes. Obviously, I've invested a ton of money and time into getting the right gear, but I'm saying that we don't have an actual budget or a brand partnership that's helping fund all of this. We are doing this run and gun style in the streets, finding locations, and I love that. You can do a lot with a little. Christian this whole time has been running B-cam for all the interviews and the Super 8 cam and the B-roll, and he's been amazing with it. He doesn't even necessarily know how to operate FX3 or A7S III. He's just running with it, and I think that we try to keep our setup as minimal as possible so that the guests don't feel like it's a major production. They feel like they can just be themselves and there's not these crazy lights. But we do put a lot of care and intention into the filming and audio setup of these because the audio matters so much. For 4 or 5 hours when we're filming, that's all I'm thinking about is how does it sound. So I have my headphones in the whole time, and we're running a lav setup with the Rode Video Mic Pro wireless, usually with Liam and the guests, or if we're doing it with more than one person, we got to run it across 2 sets of lavs, which can get a little confusing, but I take a lot of pride in how these things sound and how these things look. And to be honest, I stress a lot about that throughout the filming, and it's always worth the stress because I know that when I'm in the edit and something sounds off or it was loud or the audio's clipping, the visuals don't look good, it's on me. It's not on anyone else, it's on me. And there's no excuse now with the resources that we have to make them sound and look great, especially in New York. Having Liam be the story driver and interviewer is great because I'm reviewing the questions with him beforehand, with Christian, and we sort of have an idea of where the story is going to go from each location and the themes that we're going to be talking about. But you can only plan so much. You never really know what they're gonna say. And I think that some of the best answers that we've heard and some of the best stories that have been told have just been off riffs of, 30 minutes in the interview, we go on a tangent and it ends up being the intro clip. As much as I love to film and put these together, I'm learning on the fly as I'm listening to what they're saying. It's like you're part of a podcast or you're part of this long form doc. I don't really talk much through the portion of these filmings because Liam's driving it, and I just get to sit back, be a fly on the wall, and make sure that I'm getting the best angle and directing everything in a way that makes sense cohesively, and go from there. I was going to touch on the post-production process and editing and all that jazz from my desk, normally how I talk to you guys, but it's so nice in New York. Blue skies, 75, and I thought I'd just post up and let you guys in on my process. I obviously haven't finished any of the edits so far, but I can at least give you guys a framework of how I'm approaching it from years of making doc style content, and a couple ways that I try to make that process more fun, because it's very grueling and it's long and it's very isolating, and I want to enjoy that process as much as I possibly can. And something that Liam and I have started to implement is reviewing the interviews together and time-stamping moments of interviews that we feel like fit the story the best, so that when I'm in the edit, I'm able to refer to certain moments and I have a better idea of what I'm getting myself into before I even start the story framework. And one of the most important parts for sure for these docs is finding the right music. Something that I've been trying to implement in my creative process is creating playlists beforehand on Musicbed, using what I know about the guests and their vibe and the energy of the video that we're trying to portray, and creating these playlists that are curated to their style. I've been making videos for a very, very long time, and I can truthfully say that music truly makes the difference when making these types of videos. And whenever I'm on my hunt for the right song, I am always looking for something that I feel like is going to resonate with the audience. Musicbed has allowed me to find those songs, from a soulful jazz song to a super cinematic violin score. I'm always looking for music that makes you feel something, and Musicbed has that authentic feel. One song can really make or break the feeling that you're trying to emulate in your films. You guys, this is your sign to switch to Musicbed and start creating content that really connects. Sign up for your 14-day free trial using my link in the description. The Spotlight Create More doc series will be going live at the end of June, and really so excited for you guys to see these 3 episodes. And we've put so much effort and time, and now it's all up to us to execute and put these things together. And if you did make this far in the video, thank you. I appreciate you guys trying to post once a month, twice a month maybe, hold me to it, but I hope that this was at least a little bit insightful. And as always, create more, and I'll see you guys